So yeah, I'm presenting this from home. I guess a lot of you are working from home today, and have been for the last few weeks. So yeah, I've got my children in another room, and they're under strict instructions to behave themselves for the next about 20 minutes, maybe half an hour. For these presentations, they're not going to be long presentations. The idea is to give you just a little piece at a time of information about automatic fire sprinkler systems. That is the big sort of topic. So everything that I'm going to be talking about is going to be linked to that kind of main subject of automatic fire sprinkler systems. So yeah, I'm really pleased. I've got 20 people tuning in already, and so that's excellent. So yeah, do mention this to your colleagues. I know that certainly my director is keen that people know that if they are furloughed, then they can still engage in training. They can still keep their skills and their knowledge up to date. So this kind of presentation would be excellent for people that maybe are furloughed. So yeah, do tell your colleagues, do tell your friends about this. Maybe share some of the adverts that we put on LinkedIn. That would be really helpful if you could do that and kind of spread the word, really. Okay, so it is 10 o'clock, and so I do like to kind of start on time. So we will get going. So this episode, is episode 1. So we're looking at the aim of a sprinkler system, some statistics about sprinklers, and the current legislation. Now, this is kind of a relaunch of Sprinkler Talk. So if you were here for the Sprinkler Talks that we did last year, a lot of the information on this presentation, will be the same. Although, of course, it's always good to kind of have that refresher. But yeah, as we go through the presentations, there will be some new content in there as well. So it isn't just going to be rerunning the old stuff. We are going to put in new presentations and new topics. So do just keep an eye on the website and then the information coming out there to tell you what's coming up. Okay, so let's go on. There we are. So yeah, just a little introduction to Project Fire to start with. So yeah, my name's Andy Fisher, and I work for Project Fire. We are based in the Midlands, and we are a manufacturer of products for the automatic fire sprinkler industry. We were established in 1976, and at that point we were a sprinkler contractor. So yeah, there's many sprinkler contractors out there who are designing sprinkler systems, then going out onto site with the pipe, with the heads, with all the fittings, and then installing that sprinkler system to the drawings, doing some commissioning, doing some handover, and then also the service and maintenance as well. But yeah, about 3 or 4 years ago now, we decided to concentrate on manufacturing the products. So we actually ceased being a sprinkler contractor, and now we just manufacture products. In essence, for us, it was concentrating on what we felt we were best at, really, which was the product side of the business. So we retain a lot of the experience from being a contractor. So, we know what it's like to be on site. We know how to do the calculations and all the kind of the theory behind sprinklers. And hopefully we bring that as far as our products are concerned, and also as part of the training as well. So part of my job here at Project Fire is to deliver training to CPDs, also training about our products, etc. And also to help consultants as well. So if you want me to look at drawings, if you want me to give advice, then very happy to do that. Okay, I think a good place to start is looking at the aim of a sprinkler system. So this is kind of got 3 kind of tiers to it, I suppose. The first one is to control. So that's really what we're looking for from a sprinkler system, to control a fire within specified limits and raise a fire alarm. So the area of which we are looking to control the fire is probably going to be the room of origin. So it does kind of depend what kind of building we're in. Are we in a sort of a large open plan warehouse environment, or are we in an office or residential home? Say in which case everything's going to be compartmented down, and therefore we want to keep the fire in the room of origin. If it's a very large, say, open plan environment, then it'll be a sort of a square meterage area that we're looking to contain the fire within. And then raise a fire alarm. So again, there's lots of different ways in which we can do that, using flow switches, pressure switches, alarm gongs, sort of digital signals, mechanical signals, signal from the pump house, for example. So there's loads kind of going on there, but all of that is triggered through the sprinklers activating. So yeah, looking to control a fire is the kind of primary purpose of a sprinkler system. However, suppression is normally achieved, so we can actually make that fire smaller, more manageable, so that when the fire and rescue service do arrive, then they've got a lot less to deal with. The fire and rescue service obviously are going to be very pleased that the fire has been controlled and been contained to within a particular area, but yeah, even better if it's suppressed. Extinguishment is often achieved, but I think it's just kind of good to point out that the aim of a sprinkler system is not to extinguish the fire. If it does so, that's obviously great. That's a bonus. But I think that there is a danger that sometimes people are kind of disappointed, maybe if the sprinkler system doesn't completely extinguish the fire, and so that's not its primary purpose. So if you kind of come across a fire, and if you come across a building where the sprinklers have activated, you must call the fire and rescue service. They are really the ones that are qualified to look at a fire and say, yep, it's fully extinguished. We can stop putting water on that now. We can stop taking action. We can turn the sprinklers off because it is fully extinguished. It is quite dangerous for somebody sort of lesser experience to say, yeah, it looks like it's out to me, turn the sprinklers off, and then what do you know? It's not out completely. It comes back, and of course you've turned the primary means of control and suppression off. So yeah, that's it really. Just making you aware of those three sort of stages of fire, and the fact that the sprinklers are primarily there to control, but suppression is normally achieved and extinguishment is often achieved. I'm going to show you a few graphs now. I mean, these are pretty obvious really, but I still think there is some benefit in showing you these and showing you these kind of what we'd expect from these different types of fire. So we've got time going along the x-axis there. We've got heat output on the y-axis. So I think that's kind of good to point out really, is that what we haven't got on the y-axis is kind of how it looks or how big the flames are. We got heat output. So again, from a point of view where we're maybe not so experienced in dealing with fire, we may look at a fire and say, well, we can't see any flames, therefore there's no fire. That's not true. It's down to the heat output. So this graph here is just showing you that the heat sort of doubling. As the time goes on, the heat gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And if we have an uncontrolled fire, then the total loss of the building is 90% guaranteed. So we would expect to lose the whole building in an uncontrolled fire. And obviously that's where the fire and rescue service aren't present at all. So here we have a controlled fire. So you can see the heat output is rising until it gets to a point. Hopefully that's where the sprinkler system has activated, and then the heat output levels off. and that would be a controlled fire. Control, say, is 99% guaranteed. So as I'll come on to in future slides, sprinkler systems are extremely reliable, extremely effective. I say we are 99% guaranteed to have a controlled fire where sprinklers are present. This is an example of a suppressed fire. So we can see that the actual heat output is being reduced over time. Suppression, say, is normally achieved. And here we have an extinguished fire, which basically means that the heat output is now 0. So we're not having any more heat being outputted from the fire. I think it's also good to know and to understand that say sprinklers are activating all the time, and they're doing a really good job in doing that, in controlling, suppressing, and extinguishing fires. In the UK, we're not all that good at reporting these kind of events. That's not really a criticism at any particular person or body or company, etc. But I think it's just kind of a fact, really, that we are not all that good at keeping a record of the activations that we've had. So yeah, I think that's definitely something that we can improve on. There are, in America, for example, they are much better at recording the fires where there's been a sprinkler activation. So I'd recommend you have a look there. I noticed I missed a W out of the website there, but I'm sure you get the idea. www.sprinklersaves.com. That is the kind of the American system where they are recording all of the sprinkler saves within the country. And there's one every few days. That is the kind of the quantity of fires that we are looking at where sprinklers are activated. Now in the UK, it's about one every 3 or 4 weeks. So about one a month, I would say, is a sprinkler save somewhere nationally. But like I say, we're not so good at recording this. You do sometimes see them on LinkedIn. So you can have a look at the hashtag sprinkler save on LinkedIn, and sometimes you get some information. It's normally from the sprinkler contractors, to be honest, that have been called in to replace the head. They get to hear about, what's gone here then, and they get to kind of hear the story and report it. Some fire and rescue services are quite good at recording what they're doing. They might have a list of the incidents they have been to see, and again, they're very good at kind of promoting sprinklers in general. So I've had to go to America for a recent example, but here we have the 30th of April. I'm not 100% sure how you pronounce that. Duluth, I suppose, in Minnesota. We have these bluestone flats here, which they do look quite fancy. I've got a question in the chat about effectiveness of sprinklers in Britain. Yes, I do. It's a little bit out of date, but yeah, that's coming up in a few slides' time. Okay, I can hear that someone's got their microphone on. It'd be good for everyone to mute their mics so we don't get any kind of background noise on the presentation. So yeah, we had a fire inside a common kitchen area on the first floor of the building, and yeah, damage was estimated at $10,000 US. I think you can appreciate it doesn't take a great deal to cause $10,000 worth of damage. If we got to repaint the kitchen, we've maybe got to refit some of the units. If the floor gets damaged, for example, then it doesn't take a lot of smoke, fire and water damage in order to create that kind of cost. But it saved the fire spreading to other areas. So we got a lot of accommodation there packed into a small extent. We could have lost the whole wing of that area and done millions of pounds worth of damage. So as it was contained to one room, and say it did its job very, very well. This is quite interesting, and again, I kind of apologise that this is out of date, this information. but I think that the proportions are still going to be true. So this is looking at the number of sprinklers installed for every 1,000 people. So of course America have more sprinkler systems installed because they've got more people, they've got more cities. That's kind of the way it is. However, say this graph is looking at for every 1,000 people, so it's kind of proportionally written. So say America is definitely leading the world in terms of sprinkler installations. Australia are the next ones. And then say UK and Europe. The Europe there is kind of an average across all the countries. So obviously some countries like Germany, for example, are very much into sprinkler protection. Other European countries are not. So say as a kind of an average, that we're about, the UK are about on par with the average in Europe. Let's look at a few arguments against sprinkler protection now. So yeah, we've heard some of the positives about them. What do people say against sprinkler protection? So first of all, these aren't in any particular order, by the way. But first of all, water damage. The people say, well, what about the water damage from sprinklers? And to that, I find that quite an odd argument, really, because what are you going to do? If you don't want water damage, do you just kind of stand back and let it burn? No, you don't. You've got a fire, and if you've ever seen any of the videos of sprinklers sort of being tested live, you've actually got a real fire and showing the sprinklers activating, then you'll know, it is not a small fire which causes the sprinklers to activate. It is not like someone smoking a cigarette. It is a substantial fire, which if you came across it, you go, oh crap, this needs dealing with immediately. So yeah, we're going to put water on it, of course. Water is a very effective method of tackling fire. We've been using it as a population for thousands of years to put out fires. So yeah, and what are you going to do? You're going to call the fire and rescue service. They're going to come out, and what are they going to do? They're going to put water on it in kind of big hoses using big sort of distribution equipment. So yeah, yes, we are going to get some water damage. There's no escaping that. But yeah, it's there for a good reason. It's there to put the fire out and to contain the damage to a small area. That water damage issue, I suppose, is linked to other things which people maybe have a misconception about. So number 2, sensitivity and reliability. So again, people, I suppose not so much anymore. Again, if there are positives from the Grenfell fire, it was that people started to talk about sprinklers. People are now, I would say that an average member of the public is now more knowledgeable about sprinklers. But still, some of this kind of misinformation remains. Say sensitivity, sprinklers will not go off if you burn the toast. They're heat activated, not by smoke. And say it's going to take a substantial amount of heat to set them off. So people using hair dryers, hair straighteners, hot showers, that sort of thing. I mean, it's just not going to set the sprinklers off. We need say a largish fire to generate the amount of heat to set off the sprinkler heads, and they are extremely reliable. That they aren't just that the bulbs don't just pop. They don't just sort of suddenly decide to give up and explode. I saw a statistic that was estimated in 1 in 16 million that a sprinkler head would just sort of bing and activate. I've got a question in the chat about vandalism of sprinkler heads. I would say that, thankfully that is very low. I haven't heard a great deal of vandalism of sprinkler heads, and I know that I mean, sprinkler heads installed in schools, for example, I think that is an excellent idea. I think that sprinklers should be installed in schools. But yeah, you do kind of worry, don't you, about the children. I don't know, you get a naughty child who gets upset at one of the teachers, and they'll say, right, I'll show you. Whack the sprinkler head. And of course, you will get water discharge out of that head. Through vandalism. If you whack the sprinkler head and break that bulb, you will get water discharge. There's no kind of getting away from that. But yeah, I'd say as far as I know, that is a very rare occurrence. There are things you can do about it. Concealed heads where appropriate, or put cages around the heads, or just install them in a way that that they're kind of less obvious, I guess, would all be ways to tackle vandalism. But yeah, so it is quite a rare occurrence, and also I suppose it's quite difficult to get away from it. Again, we're thinking about our school example. You've got all the kids sort of lined up outside, and one of them's covered in water. You think, well, okay, well, who set the sprinkler head off? There might be a clue there. Ongoing costs and responsibility. So yes, there will be ongoing costs and there will be ongoing responsibility. But again, for me, that is definitely worthwhile for the additional fire protection that sprinkler system is going to bring. So there is a series of maintenance required, some testing required to make sure that sprinkler system remains in good working order. In the future presentations, we'll go over that in detail. For a commercial system, there's things to do on a weekly basis, monthly basis, 6-monthly basis, every year. There is quite a list of things. But you say it's all there to keep the sprinkler system in full working order. Otherwise, what's the point in having one? If you're not sort of confident it's going to do the job, then for me, there's no point in installing it. Responsibility, yeah, you've got the responsibility of looking after it, but the good news is that if you do have a fire, then you've got a really good chance of containing, suppressing, and extinguishing that fire, protecting property and protecting life as well. Number 4, bit of a classic here, all the heads operating at once. And I say for me that's quite that's linked to water damage. People kind of see this idea and afraid the film industry and the television industry, that they want to create a bit of drama, and all the heads go off at once. That is not the case. Those that kind of in the know will understand that there is such a thing called a deluge system, in which you are going to get all the heads operating, but that isn't a deluge system is not going to be installed in a car park, in a school, in a residential building. It's just not going to happen. All the heads are individually heat activated, so you only get multiple heads if the fire is big enough to kind of warrant multiple heads. So I'm sure we've all got our own sort of area of expertise when we watch films. I mean, my wife's a nurse, so when there's some kind of scene set in a hospital, for example, she'll say, well, why are they doing that? That'll make it worse. Why have they got that machine in there? It should be that machine. And definitely from my point of view, knowing about sprinklers, when I see all the heads go off at once, I say, why is that happening? I watched that Highlander film the other day. That was on, and they had that in a car park. Just all the heads went off at once. Number 5, space. Space is required for sprinklers for sure. But the largest item is your water storage tank. Not always required, depending on how you're setting up the system. And so we can talk about that in future presentations, but yes, you do need to allow for, often I'll say, you need to allow for a water storage tank and a fire pump. And then space for the pipe work in risers, in voids, normally to accommodate the sprinkler system. And all of that can be worked out in advance. It's very, very common sizes. So people with kind of experience can have a look at the type of building, the size of the building, the hazard category, and be able to give you, a very reasonable guess in terms of the space that's required. Got a question there about the weight of a sprinkler head. I think I'll come back to that at the end. And freezing, yeah, again, I'll come back to that at the end of the presentation, I think. Number 6, cost. Yeah, again, it is going to cost some money for sure. But in the grand scheme of things, it is for me very good value. Say in terms of actual material costs that are quite low, sprinkler heads are cheap, pipe work is cheap, bracketry is cheap. There's some money in the pumps. There's some money in the tank, but really what you're paying for is the labour to actually install the heads and the pipe. That obviously does come at a cost, but in terms of the percentage of the total building cost, it's quite low. And say for me, the benefits that it bring are just outweigh that. If you're architects, for example, need to be aware of complying to various regulations, and actually sprinklers can be advantageous. If you want large open plan areas, if you're struggling with distances from fire escapes, for example, again, all of this is in the building regulations, and sprinklers can help you to kind of navigate that. And often sprinklers are used as what's called a compensatory feature, which gives architects sort of greater freedom in the designs that they put together. So we mentioned about data from Britain in terms of sprinkler reliability. So this is an excellent document, but it is now a little bit out of date. The 2011-2016. I really hope that they bring out a new one of these soon. But yet this can be downloaded from various places. I've given you an example there, nationalfirechiefs.org.uk. And say that just goes into real detail in terms of what happened and what the effectiveness was, what the fire damage area was, how many heads operated, loads of fantastic statistics in there if you're interested in that sort of thing. So we've got 945 fires there. And so I've just picked out a few headlines here. 99% effective in containing, controlling or extinguishing fires. And say operational reliability in the high 90s. So do download that and have a look at that. These are a few bits taken from that report. So first of all, we're looking at how effective they were. So we say in terms of effectiveness, again, they're all over, well, all 99% or over in terms of effectiveness. But then we have the difference between containing, controlling, and extinguishing. So you can see that in other residential, it was nearly 50% where the sprinklers actually extinguish the fire. And then in other types, so it varies. But it's around a third. Overall, around a third of fires, the sprinklers extinguished it. Number of heads. So on the left, we've got domestic and residential. On the right, we've got industrial and commercial. So you can see that in the vast majority of cases, it is a single sprinkler head which operates. If it's not one head, it's two. And if it's not two, it's more likely three. That there are, you can see in terms of more than 5 heads operating, domestic and residential, very, very rare. Industrial and commercial, it is more common, and that's to be expected. We've got higher fire loads. We've maybe got racking. We've got lots of materials stored, flammable goods, etc. So it is understandable that we are going to get occasionally going to get fires which are going to spread very, very quickly and have more than 5 heads operating. But yeah, hopefully you can see from those graphs there, the vast majority of cases, one head in operation, which is great. It's doing its job, and it's not, say, discharging water over areas which isn't necessary. Area fire damage, again, not going to go too much into that, but yeah, it's low. So most of the time, it's either no damage or up to 5 square meters worth of damage. So yeah, excellent work. Right, final bit here, current legislation. So in England, we have residential blocks over 30 metres high, and then you can read them off yourself. But yeah, we're looking at sort of large, uncompartmented areas in shops or self-storage. And then we have our large single-storey buildings, industrial warehouses, etc., uncompartmented areas. So there aren't many instances where sprinklers are required by legislation. But obviously that isn't the only place which you would install sprinklers. They could be installed for property protection, so you're kind of volunteering to install them on the basis of the protection that brings to the property, to the business, or you could install them for purposes of life safety, and again that's quite common. And so that would be the case for shopping centres, often for schools, hospitals, etc. Then you would have this specification for life safety sprinklers. Scotland are doing kind of better than England and other parts of the UK. So they're doing all their new residential care homes. Their limit for high-rise and sheltered housing is 18 metres. New schools, all their new schools, all their shopping centres. The limit for warehouses, you can see, has gone down from 20 to 14, and high-risk hospitals, will be sprinkler protected. Wales, though, are really leading the way. So yeah, basically everything in Wales is sprinkler protected. You're going to be hard to find a kind of a new project which won't be sprinkler protected. But yeah, and also I like the fact that they're looking at refurbishment as well. So when a building is going through major refurbishment works, they will be required to install sprinklers, even though it's not strictly a new building. They would still be required to put sprinklers in, which I think is an excellent idea. That was one of the criticisms. I don't want to talk about Grenfell too much, but that was one of the criticisms, is that the council spent a load of money making it look nice, didn't actually spend the money on the fire safety. So yeah, in Wales they would be required to do that. As I kind of went through those slides, hopefully I've raised a few eyebrows. Hopefully you've gone, hang about, Andy, that's not quite right. And this is to do with the residential blocks over 30 metres high, because this is changing. Due to coronavirus and lockdown, etc., I'm not quite sure whether the law has actually come into place. But yeah, it has been agreed, and it will be coming in. I just don't know quite when exactly it will be brought into place. But yeah, we have lowered the limit now to 11 metres. I was sort of pleasantly surprised that it was 11 metres. I mean, I think it would have been quite easy to go for 18 metres to bring it in line with Scotland. I'm not sure what that means for Scotland. I don't know whether Scotland are going to bring theirs down from 18 to match us at 11 or not. I'm not quite sure. So, over the following weeks with Sprinkler Talk, I will be bringing you up to date with that legislation, because there is also some useful other bits that kind of going in with that as well, in terms of responsibility for the building owner, in terms of keeping the residents informed and things like that. So that's all good stuff. That's all kind of useful stuff that's kind of coming in alongside that 11 metre rule. So yeah, watch this space. But yeah, I can see messages saying new ADB coming out in May. Yeah, that is what I've heard. So yeah, once that comes out, then I suppose that rule will then be in place. Yeah, yeah, you're quite right, Steve. That's right. Yeah, yeah. About the 11 meters. Yeah, I was coming to that. Cool. Okay, so that is the end of this presentation. Thank you very much for tuning in. I will now be looking through the chat and answering any questions that I've got outstanding. Next week, we're going to be looking a little bit at the history of sprinkler systems. So don't think that I'll be, going on for hours about all the history. It is just an overview to explain kind of how we've got to the present day. And we'll be looking at the difference between property protection and life safety, and a little bit about how a sprinkler system operates. If you have any comments, feedback, questions, then either put them into the chat or send me an email at sprinklertalk@projectfire.co.uk. As I say, do please recommend this to other people that you know that you think might be interested. And in particular, if you've got topics that you want me to cover, then send me an email and let me know, because I'm looking for ideas for topics coming up. Okay, so thanks so much for tuning in. So I will stay online and I will be answering a few questions from the chat. If you've got to go, then thanks so much for tuning in. All right, where did I get to? So we had a question about what weight can the sprinkler heads take? We are working with prisons. Could they withstand a rope and body weight? I suppose a short answer to that is I've no idea. Certainly, the supports for the pipework are not designed to take additional weight. They are designed to take the weight of the pipework and the heads alone. So you certainly wouldn't be recommending to support anything else off those pipes. However, clearly, they will. They're not going to fall apart. If you apply a little bit of force on them, they're not just going to fall out the ceiling. They will take some weight. So really, I've no idea. I mean, I'm guessing in a prison scenario, you would not want them to withstand the weight of a body and a rope to stop people from hurting themselves. All I suggest is that you would speak to the sprinkler contractor and installer and maybe come up with some way of preventing that from happening. Maybe you can use some special fixings which have a sort of a set load at which they fail, or say some other way of monitoring what's happening. So that the short answer is I don't know. I would imagine that in some instances, yes, they would be able to support that amount of weight, but clearly they're not designed to do that. Question about freezing, pipework freezing. There are solutions to this. Trace heating, for example, where you have it's like a tape with a small electrical wire going through it, and you apply that tape to the pipe, and that just connects it to a simple system which just gives a small amount of heat through that cable, which then in turn stops the water from freezing. Or you can lag the pipes, so you can wrap them up in a blanket, in the kind of lagging, again to stop them from freezing. Or you can use a different type of sprinkler system entirely. You could use a dry system or some kind of dry-based system where there isn't water in the pipes permanently, and then again that will solve the problem. Again, if you come across a system which has got issues with freezing, then definitely contact a sprinkler contractor, servicing contractor, and they can come out and advise and say, I imagine that will go for a lagging or trace heating system. Question: would commercial sprinklers cost more than residential systems? Definitely. In terms of sort of cost per square meter, yes. that's not so much to do with the heads and the pipe and the fixings, etc., but that definitely is down to the water supplies. So commercial sprinkler systems are going to require a much more expensive fire pump, a much larger water storage tank, for example, larger fittings, butterfly valves, more monitoring, more electronics. So yes, is a short answer to that one. A commercial sprinkler system will cost more than a residential system. I never want to talk figures because it isn't really my area, and it very much depends on the type of building and what you're trying to accomplish. A PDF copy of the presentation is a possibility, Amanda. Yeah. I think the idea is that these presentations are going to pop up on YouTube to be able to watch again. If we're doing that, then I can't see any reason why I can't send out a copy of the presentations. Question: do we use copper pipe work? No, we generally don't. I believe you can. I think that copper does appear in the standards as an acceptable material to use, but no, we generally don't. In commercial sprinklers, we use steel pipe, so just plain steel pipe. We can use galvanized pipe. We can use CPVC pipe, so plastic pipe, residential, which I guess is what you mean by this kind of poly pipe. A plastic-based pipe is typical for residential and domestic. But equally, you can use steel pipe for residential and domestic as well. There's options there. But yeah, copper is quite rare, as you quite rightly say, because of the cost of that material. Challenges of sprinkler maintenance. For residential buildings, for me, the maintenance of residential and domestic sprinklers is quite low, really. It's only an annual testing. Have I disappointed? I think we dropped out there, didn't we? Okay. Well, hopefully you're still there. What was I talking about? Challenges of maintenance. Yeah. So, like I say, for residential domestic, it is quite low. I don't see a big deal with that. Say in future presentations, we'll go through exactly what is required. Oh, right. Yeah, got a message here saying Scotland coming down to 11 metres as well. So, yeah, that seems sensible. BS, was it 449s and 9991? Not an expert to that on that front, but I believe that they reference heavily 12845 standards. So basically other sprinkler standards which I'm more familiar with. But yeah, I'll look into that. Okay, yeah, we've got a message here. They're dedicated sprinkler heads for prisons that snap easily. So yeah, cool, problem solved. Issues with CPVC pipework leaking due to conflicts with fire caulking compounds. Yes, definitely aware of that. Again, we'll pick up on that in another presentation. And issues with flushing connections, etc. Yeah, that'll be a good topic for the future to be talking about that in more detail. Great. No, I think the chat is working very well. People are kind of answering each other's questions, and that's brilliant. That's really good. So yeah, I think that's kind of coming to the end. That one was a little bit longer than I kind of intended, but that's fine. So most of the time there will be 20 to 30 minutes, but obviously it depends on how many questions I get and how it goes. But yeah, thank you again for tuning in. Hope you have a great day. I'm going to go and spend some time with my children now because they have been excellent. I haven't heard them at all during this presentation, so yeah, they can have a sweetie, and are off to do some schoolwork. So I'm gonna play teacher now. Okay, thanks a lot, guys. See ya. Bye bye.